Okay. The Uncertain Path. This is book number 6 in the Jedi Apprentice series. And this is just following straight up. So Obi-Wan has said that he's done with the Jedi. He's going to stay on Melita Dan for the plight of the young. And it's literally like a direct sequel to it. And so you do have Qui-Gon on Coruscant, and there's this kind of internal tension that's happening there in the Jedi Temple. And Melita Dan, Obi-Wan. And if I'm remembering correctly, you have a lot of this like Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan for the chapters. It's a really cool back and forth. And basically, there's this, Melita Dan has this post-revolution society, right? The somewhere between the last book and this book, I can't remember exactly which one it takes place in. I think might be the last one. But basically, the young kind of pull this fast one where they get everybody's weapons. So they have like pretty much every single weapon on the planet. And if you want to control the populace, right, control the weapons, because that's what they've learned. If we have the bigger firepower, nobody will stand up to us if we're kind of aware and alert. So that's basically what happens. And in true fashion, they become the oppressors, essentially. The young think, hey, we're gonna deal with this in such a way that it'll never be dealt with again, and that requires violent force, which is the irony of all of this, where from a historical perspective, like I've said, it's Marxism, right? But then on the other end, even biblically, it's like if you live by the sword, you die by the sword. And so we have Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, Neild and Sarasai from the last book. They're pulled through. Sarasai has a very very important role in this book, especially near the end. And then, you have Tal, Bruck, and Bant. You have some... I
love Bant.
Bant is cool.
So cute.
For our kids' homeschool, we're going to sound like super nerds and super smart. They're like, they learn Latin part of their homeschool. And so, Bont is like so I always kept saying Bont, and I'm like, I have to say Bant. It's not Latin. So
maybe it is Bont.
Maybe it is Bont. So basically the plot for The Uncertain Path. You have the young who are now victorious on Melita Dan, and they're attempting to form a government, right? Because there's basically just a few that were kind of leading the masses. And there's this whole thing where they get like these people on the outskirts, and they get them brought in, and there's they're kind of this grassroots movement of the young and kind of the not middle-aged, like the young adults. So kind of teenagers and young adults, they all kind of band together, and they're going to fight the adults, basically, fight the oppressors. And so then they basically form this kind of like government board, if I remember correctly. There's like a group of them that decide on different things that happen, different sectors of life. And the unity that they were experiencing starts fracturing, and there's these power struggles that are taking place. And even this is where Obi-Wan kind of gets treated a little poor, because he was pretty critical.
Yeah.
And
he sacrificed a lot for these people.
He left the Jedi. He like rebelled openly. He like burned bridges, basically. And he's treated as an outsider.
Yep.
And basically at certain points they're like, he has no say, right? Even though he has like kind of he has a seat on the board that's running, the government board that's running the planet. And basically you have this group, there's disillusionment because this group within the young, really started by Neild, believes war is the answer. We need to be progressive and violent. And there's this other group that would say, no, passivity is the answer, right? Basically, we need peace. We need non-violence, which is kind of like Obi-Wan and Sarasai, essentially. Sarasai is a girl, and Neild's a boy. And so then on Coruscant, kind of the juxtaposition here, because you're like, what is Qui-Gon doing now? How does he answer for this? That's kind of like a conflict.
Right.
But there's these thefts that are taking place at the Jedi Temple, and they're kind of like alarming the council. So that's things are heating up. So it's not just this super linear plot. That there's multiple things happening at the same time. And basically, at one point, Obi-Wan is like, "Hey," he calls out for Qui-Gon, and it feels like when
I loved that part. And he's like, "Tell him I'll be right there."
And when he shows up, it just, to me, I was like reminded of when like it's not Gandalf the Grey, it's Gandalf the White. When he like comes back, it's like he's here, like the Savior is here.
Yeah.
But basically, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, they uncover a plot that the young, they just want to prolong the conflict and the war to hold power. And basically, Obi-Wan's like, well, this got corrupted fast. That's essentially what he sees. So he chooses to return to the Jedi Order after a very tragic thing takes place. This is a big spoiler alert, so if you're like, I don't want this spoiler alert, hit the mute button. But Sarai is assassinated. She's killed in combat. Basically, it's her dad who's Wahadi and like kneeled, and they're arguing kind of across the battlefield, so to speak. And both sides
go off and they don't know who.
Yeah, Sarai runs in the middle to kind of stop him, and bang, she gets shot. And basically, then you find out that Wahadi, basically Wahadi's somewhat involved, but this guy went rogue, and there's this huge, massive. It's really terrible.
Yeah, what was his name? Starts with an M.
I can't remember his name, but this is the first. I think this is the first time in the book, or in the book series, if you will, where when you're reading, you're like, wow, they really just took out kind of a character I thought would be here for a long time.
Yeah, it was sad.
You feel like nobody's really safe besides those who have to be safe.
Right.
I think my one complaint is through the whole series, Sarai is not brought through as much as I thought she would be, but Melita Dan is.
She is for a little bit. Yeah.
But why don't you talk about Obi-Wan and his character themes and how we see his development in the series and things like that?
Yeah, this one I definitely feel bad for Obi-Wan because really he's paying the price of his like consequences for his actions. So he's got to deal with that. But he experiences rejection after he sacrificed a lot, like I was saying before. Like he gave up his dream of being a Jedi Knight. He gave up a relationship with Qui-Gon. He gave up a lot. And then these people just rejected him. And then even outside of that, like he sacrificed his life. Like he chose to stay on a war-torn planet to help these people. But he also learns that passion alone can't sustain justice. And he discovers the cost of leadership without wisdom. You can be charismatic, but if you don't have wisdom, you may have the title of leader, but you're not a great leader. You're probably not leading well.
Yeah, Neil doesn't really know what he's doing, and Wahadi doesn't really know either.
Right.
They're both just kind of grasping in the dark for power.
Right. But he returns humbled, which is how we all want to respond in any situation like this. And he's disciplined and more self-aware. So like I said about the last book, you see how this experience of Melita Dan transforms Obi-Wan and helps him grow as a character. I think it's after this, he still kind of is at times, but after this you kind of see him become less impulsive.
Sure.
And so you're really starting to see like this character development of him, and he's actually responding to consequences. He's receiving them. He doesn't always like them, but he's also on this journey to try to become a Padawan again, because he's back in the temple with Qui-Gon and he's kind of helping Qui-Gon, but the council's like, we don't know, like you just left. Like this is like, you're supposed to give your life to this, and how are we supposed to trust that you're not going to just bounce again?
Yep. And
so he's in kind of this probation waiting period, and so then you get to kind of see his internal struggle there. And again, it reminded me of like real life. And like, how many times have we been in seasons of waiting and like, will I ever get this? Will I ever get there? Will this ever work out? But then still in that learning to be humble. Like that's really what Obi-Wan is working through right now. I think is trying to learn to be humble and recognize his mistakes. And you even, I think it's the next one actually, so I'm not going to say that yet.
Okay.
The turbo lift.
Oh, yeah.
That's the next
that is.
one. Okay.
I like how you're like whispering. There's some microphone.
I know.
Yes, well, the turbo lift.
Just saying turbo lift isn't a
sure. Yeah, spoiler. Unless you know what's happening.
But yeah, you really see his continued character development, and I love backstory and I love character development. It's one of my favorite things in stories. And so these books have honestly just made me love Star Wars more, and I didn't know that was possible. But yeah, and I've always loved Obi-Wan. I've always loved Qui-Gon, but because of these books, they're like ranking up onto like my top. They're coming up to the top of my like character list, like up there with like Han well, I like Han, but I didn't mean to say Han. I'm going to say Luke, Anakin, Padme. Definitely Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan are like up there in that tier now because of these books.
Qui-Gon alone is.
Oh, he's
like it's incredible because I mean one thing you see with Qui-Gon is he allows Obi-Wan to fail without totally severing that relationship, and he's grieving this whole process,
right? And
he does show what like restorative mentorship looks like. Like how does he actually restore him into the fold instead of trying to control him, because he's thinking long game. He's trying to develop Obi-Wan and guide him into the living force. That's
and he's not trying to just cover him and like not have him take responsibility. So there's this really healthy balance of, hey, I want you to be my Padawan. I want this relationship to work, but obviously we have to develop trust again. And you have consequences for your actions, and I'm not going to just save you. You're going to go through them because that's how you develop.
That's so true. And when we come to the young, when you're looking at the young, they're a major, I mean, it's kind of a weird name, the young, right? But this group of people, essentially you're seeing Jude Watson, what I give her massive credit for is she's able to take very deep, real world, political and philosophical ideas and boil it down into these books. Not perfectly, but it's like if you know what she's writing about, you're like, okay, I'm seeing real life here. Right. It's not just purely fantasy. And so I do appreciate that. I feel like if I were to look at Jude Watson's kind of like sci-fi fantasy reading list and look at like my own, I'd be like, it would feel very similar, I'm sure. The young, essentially, they are successful revolutionaries, but they can't govern for anything. So they can create this revolution, but then it's like, now what do you do with it? They're not good at that. And basically when oppression comes, or when conflict comes, it's like they just default to oppression, and they don't really know how to hold peace well. And also they just think that I don't remember if they're called the elders, but basically the adults of Melita Dan, they just think that they're going to kind of roll over and just take it. Right. And that is not the case at all, right?
They want to put up a fight.
Yeah. And so the young, especially for Obi-Wan, they kind of mirror the Jedi Order and just this whole tension of like ideals and institutions. Like sometimes they can't coexist. Right. And like you see it where people are like, oh, I love Jesus, but I hate the church, right? Or they, just all these different things where you're like, I like this aspect, but I want to reject any of the institutional side of it, which it's like, well, that never really works. Like you can't separate them. And just because your experience or maybe like a larger experience, there's corruption in one institution doesn't mean that it's void of the ideals. Right. And so he has to come to terms with that with the Jedi Temple. Essentially like, well, Melita Dan wasn't the green field I thought it would be. Right. He's
the
like,
grass is not greener.
He's like, it's actually worse, and I burned a bridge that I shouldn't have that I shouldn't have burned. And this little duology of books here, right? The Melita Dan, these 2 books, fantastic, because you have the whole, like, Xanatos hasn't gone away, right? He's the he's the off-screen antagonist right now, and the Coruscant subplot, this whole thing that's happening, it's showing, hey, the Jedi are vulnerable. Mm-hmm. Especially in the prequels, when you see things, you're like, how did this happen, right?
Right.
You're seeing that they're vulnerable, and you're seeing that the institution is fragile, mm-hmm. because when things are being stolen, it's like, how can somebody do this? It doesn't make sense to them. Right. And you think the people being sent around the galaxy to help defend peace can't even take care of the temple. It's really, really fascinating.
Well, and if I remember correctly, this one ends with an attack on Yoda's life.
Yes.
That's the end of this one.
Yeah, I think it's like the last sentence even.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh gosh, just no time to recover.
Yeah. Here we go.
That's how Jude Watson writes most of these, especially the first 8. She writes in such a way where it's like this build-up of tension.
You got to keep reading.
And then she brings this resolve for like a chapter, and you're like, oh. And then she's like, kablam!
Boom.
And then,
well, now we got to stay up till 4 a.m. and finish this one.
You're like, oh my gosh, now we got to read the next one right now. Mm-hmm. After book 8, that changes, except for like a string of like 3 books. Because then there's some standalone and some arcs that are in there. It's a little bit different.
Yeah.
But like you've been saying, this is one of the most formative arcs for Obi-Wan. Mm-hmm. And it really deepens Qui-Gon's role as the mentor. Yeah. In this relationship. And I think I think these 2 books kind of take like it, they elevate it from just junior fiction, where it's like, this isn't just like dumbed down, watered down fiction. Like this is actually kind of punching above its pay grade for how it's been classified. Yeah. And so essentially this book, it's showing, that conviction without wisdom, it builds nothing, and that true growth often begins with returning humbled. That is The Uncertain Path, an absolutely fantastic book.